And it's a boy and a girl, and they're
How
babies.
awesome.
So they're gonna grow with us, and then they're gonna reproduce.
Nice.
It's like there's so much life there. They can just go anywhere. So
Oh, wow.
Super fun.
We're live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Lori here. Welcome to my How Do You Spirit podcast. And I am so grateful and so excited to introduce to you Paul Hutchinson. Welcome. Welcome. I've had the opportunity to chat with him prior to going live, and we will be taking questions today, people. So please chime in, ask your questions. It might take us a minute to get to them, but Chelsea's moderating, and she'll let us know if we have some questions. And I want to start off, Paul, with first, tell us a little bit about who Paul is. What background, real quick.
Well, I'm Paul Hutchinson. Quick background, I was born in Utah. I have 4 sisters, growing up in a very Orthodox religion. And about 15 years ago, found a deeper spiritual connection that we can talk about. About 11 years ago, I was recruited by our Attorney General to go help with some undercover rescue missions. I helped to fund the mission that was done in Colombia. I was the primary investor and executive producer of the movie Sound of Freedom.
If you haven't seen it, go find it and watch it. It's amazing.
I had some very successful companies. I had a company that helped people overcome anxiety and depression, had 50,000 people a month calling in off of our infomercial.
Wow.
Had a very successful investment fund in Utah. I believe it's the biggest one here. We're right now, the company that John and I started now has almost $50 billion in assets under management. I retired when we only had just under 20 billion, but have some good people that are running it and kept it growing from there.
That's amazing. So let's get into the missions and the support that you've given to saving many children from the child trafficking. Tell us a little bit about that.
So there's a lot about that.
Yes.
I have led or played a key part in over 70 undercover rescue missions in the last 10 years.
Wow.
The first one, like I said, was in Colombia. If you've seen the movie Sound of Freedom, about partway through when Jim Caviezel was like, okay, the only way we can figure out how to make this work, I've got to convince Pablo. Well, I'm Pablo in real life. In the movie, he was a multi-billion-dollar fund manager who had a certain set of skills that made him somewhat safe in a dangerous place. So in real life, I got that call from the Attorney General and then introduced me to the Homeland Security agent who I was super close with for about 5 years. You know, if people are asking, oh, what about this? I made a hard break about 5 years ago from Tim and that organization. I helped to fund a lot of the stuff in the beginning, introduced them to a lot of wealthy people, but we, since that time, started the Child Liberation Foundation, which has not only helped to fund that one, but many other organizations that are fighting child trafficking, and right now it's building safe houses and healing retreats and helping to change laws and policies in countries all around the world.
Such amazing work that you've done. Thank you. Thank you. And what I want to know and why we're here, the story, the spiritual side, the story, how did Paul use that spirit, not use, that's the wrong word, but the spiritual side, how did that help you in getting into all of these wonderful things you've been doing and the guidance that you received? And I was watching one of your episodes and you had mentioned how you actually feel safer on a mission than in the streets of Salt Lake City.
I do, because I believe that we're part of something so much greater than ourselves.
Yes.
And in fact, a story that I think is kind of brings everything together. This was 30 years ago, and I was introduced to a guy by the name of Jerry Prine. Jerry Prine was living here in Utah at the time. He since passed away in 2010, but Jerry was the inventor of over 300 life-saving medical devices. He was the original inventor of the voice recognition technology that IBM used, or that pre-Siri, everything else, right? That was him that created that. Now, the crazy thing is that Jerry he read on a 3rd grade level. He never graduated from 8th grade and was called stupid his whole life. And yet he was able to invent all these things. And I remember I went to lunch with him, and he said to me, he said, Paul, he said, you can have an IQ over 200 if you wanted to. And I looked at him, I said, I don't think so. I said, first of all, I didn't think you can change your IQ. And
Right.
second of all, I'm not that smart. I worked my butt off to get into college. I didn't even get a scholarship, right? He said, no. He said, the difference between me and you is that I listen better than you.
Oh.
And I said, you listen better than me? And I touched my ear. He said, no, I listen better than you. And he touched his heart. And he said to me, he said, Paul, do you think that I'm the inventor of those medical devices? I said, you have the patents, right? He goes, yeah, I do. I said, you're not the inventor? He goes, no. I said, what, you stole them? He goes, well, kind of. He said, how long has the universe been around? I said, millions of years.
Right.
He said, billions upon billions of years. He said, those medical devices were invented billions of years ago.
What?
I was a better listener than you.
Oh my goodness.
He said, you have to understand, we live in a world of universal truth. We literally have access to everything. We have access to everything in terms of physics and biology and healing and just everything. We have access to all of it, but we have to learn how to listen. And he put his hand on his heart, right?
Yes.
And this was a whole different view of the spiritual realm. I had spent most of my life, my connection with the spiritual realm was one-way prayers, right? They were, okay, God, Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Please bless this. Forgive me for this. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. It was very just one-sided. Bless, thank you, sorry, bye.
Right.
Type thing.
You're kind of just talking, not really.
I was never listening.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes,
I was never listening. And so learning how to tune in. First of all, step one is the understanding that we are not physical beings having a spiritual experience.
Yes.
We are spiritual beings having this physical
human.
experience on earth, right? And starting with that premise and that understanding that we're all spiritual beings, and then secondly, understanding from I was going to be a doctor, and I studied physics and biology and chemistry in depth on the way through, right? All my pre-med stuff. And a lot of modern science is now recognizing the fact that everything is energy, right? Even this microphone right here,
Right.
it looks solid,
Right.
right? However, if you go down, if we could shrink ourselves the size of a molecule,
Yeah.
right? That molecule would have a few different atoms, right? They're all connecting. Well, one atom would be like a mile that way, one would be a mile that way, one would be a mile that way, and they're held together with just energy, right? And then if you could go even smaller into the size of the atom, you're going through this atom, and there's these electrons and protons. It's literally, in the atom itself, is almost all energy. And when we understand that everything around us is frequency, vibration, and energy. If one of my favorite sayings by Tesla,
Yes.
Nikola Tesla, was, if you want to understand the mysteries of the universe, think in terms of frequency, vibration, and energy. Well, I'm going to add to that. All matter is not only energy, frequency, and vibration. All matter is intelligence, right? All matter is connected to source, is connected to God, and all of us are connected with each other in this spiritual realm, heart to heart to heart. And when we start understanding the spiritual world in that way, then we can begin to listen better, learn how to trust what's coming through. People are like, oh, I can't trust my feelings because I made all these stupid decisions. Right?
Yes.
But if we can learn that when we really start tuning in, that is coming from a place of infinite truth, infinite knowledge. And it's far beyond what we've gathered in our life with our five senses, with things we've touched and seen and smelled and heard, etc. And so if we can really start to tune in to those feelings that all of us are born with.
Right.
Guys, every single person, I don't care if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Mormon, if you're a Christian, it doesn't matter, right? Every single person on earth was born with the ability to feel and recognize that spirit of truth.
Yes.
And that started my process when that meeting with Jerry and starting to understand that the world was all tied together in that way. I started to listen to that still small voice of truth. And as I was building my investment fund, the second that I felt something, you need to call this member of the Marriott family, but I would respond immediately. I would call them right then.
So the first instinct,
Yeah.
yep.
And I would, what would be amazing is they're like, oh, I was just thinking about you. I just finished reading. Of course, because when you're really in tune, you realize that we are all
Connected.
universally connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. And something I struggled with, not a lot now, but just trusting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you realize, okay, I trust my inner self, my intuition, my oneness?
I started testing little silly things.
Yes.
Right? Things like closing my eyes and visualizing a spot that was open for me to park at that was right next to the store so I didn't have to walk. Right? Stupid little things like that. I would tune into it and I would say, okay, I see that, okay, it's there. And what would be crazy is I'd pull in and somebody would be pulling out of that spot right when I got there. Now, call that intuition. You can call it, you can call it even the manifestation. Here's something important.
Yes.
When you understand that we are made of this energy and we have that inside of us, and our pineal gland, right, our third eye that's right between here and here, it's a crystal. It's a crystal that is super in tune, just like the crystals that were in the old radios. You would tune the radio just right. It would be fuzzy, 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 and then boom, now you would hear a clear signal. Okay. The inside those radios was a little crystal. That's what was tuned in because it was really sensitive to the frequencies, right? And so tuning into that frequency through your pineal gland and through all of the cells of your body, your entire body is a receiver and a transmitter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so whether finding that parking place was because I was receiving and connected and knew that it was there, or whether I was transmitting, it was almost irrelevant to me. I got a front parking
You got
place.
it.
Right? And it started happening over and over again. And then I expanded it upon, okay, now I'm going to start really trusting my intuition. I'm going to trust that still small voice of truth when it comes to who I should call at which time. Now, here's something important too. If you don't know where you want to go, then that intuitive guidance won't know where to take you.
That's so true. And I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I teach our people, get super clear on where you want to be,
So
what it is you
important.
want to create. And once you're super clear on that version of yourself or that future of yourself, this is how I build a multi-billion-dollar company. This is how I help find the children. This is how I help build a foundation with global impact. All of it. I'm not that smart. I'm not that. It's just learning how to tune in to that infinite knowledge that all of us have access to and learning how to manifest through that same energy. Right?
Wow.
Now, when it came to the child rescue missions,
Yes.
I think that the problem is this. Most of us have a hard time with unwavering conviction about anything. Okay? For you who are Christian based, James chapter 1 says you must ask in faith, nothing wavering. Well, that wavering is the hard part for people because they don't know if what they want is in line with what their God wants. Should I marry this woman? Should I start this new job? Should I move to this new city? And honestly, I think that a lot of these things, God's like, hey, you whatever you want,
Right.
you create it, and I'll help make it happen, right?
Yes.
When it comes to these children, I don't care if God's a man or a woman or a rainbow or a cloud or a universe. I don't care if you called God Jehovah or Allah or it doesn't matter. There is not a virtuous, powerful, omnipotent being in the universe that's okay with an 8-year-old being raped.
Right.
Okay? So it's easy for me in those situations to have unwavering faith, unwavering commitment,
Wow.
that conviction that we're going to find those kids. And within that energy of tuning in to that infinite love, and we'll talk about that with my meditations in a minute.
Yes.
But tuning into that space of love, tuning into that frequency of God, and that unwavering conviction that we're going to find the kids, those voices, those inspirations, that direction came very clearly every single time. every single
Wow.
time. And I can
Wow.
tell you hundreds of stories of times where we were undercover where, boom, that. In fact, I'll tell you a couple right now, just
Yes,
for fun.
yes, please do. I'm just,
So-
oh.
So, for example, I one of our ones just right before I met Taco, and she convinced me I needed to go public. I was still undercover, right? I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
no public presence whatsoever, and I was doing undercover work in Ecuador, and the federal agents knew there was a lot of traffic. They wanted us to help follow up on some of the leads that they brought in. And the first thing they did is said, okay, we there's a little girl that my wife Vanessa had gone and visited with. She was taken to Peru. She was being sold as a child. It was a horrible situation, but she was originally being sold out of this region in downtown Quito, Ecuador.
Okay.
So these guys dropped me and my operators off, and we get off, and there's this big area downtown, and they just want us to find if there's trafficking going on. And I remember we were in this courtyard, and I'm looking around, and I'm just listening. I'm just feeling, okay? I'm seeing prostitute, drug dealer, gang member, and I'm looking around, just feeling through all of it. And I look down this alley, and down this alley I see this girl, probably a prostitute from what I can tell, and she's leaning up against a wall with her kind of foot against the wall, just sitting there with her arms folded. And immediately I felt it. That's the one. There's my lead right there.
Yeah.
So I grabbed one of my guys. I said, Jeremy, come with me. So he comes with me. We go down this alley. I go up to her, and I say, I walk up, and I say, ¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name? And she answers, Effie. Effie. I'm like, no, that's not. I'm sure that's not your name. And she says $10. She wanted to sell herself for $10, right?
Oh my
and
gosh.
I pulled out a 20, and she goes, "Oh, those fucky." I'm like, "No, not." I said, I told her in my broken Spanish that I have a friend that's coming to town. He's interested in, some kids and whatnot. And she goes, "Oh, I don't know anybody." I says, "Okay, if you do, I'll give you a 20."
Yeah.
I knew she knew somebody. Came back down to the courtyard. Less than 2 minutes later, she comes down. She's like this. So I grab one of my other operators who speaks really good Spanish, Jimmy, and we go down and we follow her down this alley, down this other one, and she takes me, and there's these two big wooden doors, and these big guys sitting out front like this, and it's this broken down sign said a hostel over it. And she explains what we're looking for. I give her the money, and boom, these guys open the door, and there's a little child just right there.
Wow.
And I said, yep, that's what my boss is looking for. They said, yeah, we got a lot more. Geotagged that location, on my map to make sure we could find it later. Make sure we weren't being followed. Went back to the undercover van where the federal agents were, and they're like, "Oh, that's exactly the spot that the other girl." They didn't tell me where the spot was. Less than 5 minutes of being there, by just listening, we were able to find that spot.
Wow.
So then they said, "Okay, we need to go to another area of town. We've been told about some kids that were being sold." 3 days after we left, they did a sting on that and arrested 12 traffickers, and 20 plus kids were in that hostel that were still being sold, etc. So, but then they took us to another area, and they had received a lead of this spa area that was hair and nails, but they had a illicit massage place in the back that was selling kids. And they drive, and then that federal agent, he goes, "Oh crap!" I said, "What?" He said, "It's closed down." He says, there's no spa there anymore. It's completely closed. We're too late. We got the lead a few weeks ago, and they're gone. And I could feel it. I said, "No, stop." He goes, "Stop." I said, "No, stop. Stop right now."
Because you just knew.
I knew there was still kids being sold there. I knew it. I could feel it. And I said, we get out. Green Beret friend, Petter, jumps out. He opens the door. Me, Andy, Jeremy get out. And I walk behind the van, and I'm just sitting there, just listening.
Right.
And something told me I need to go in the restaurant. So I walked in this restaurant that was just down the street a little bit, and I go in there, and I said, "Hey," I said, I there's supposed to be a spa here and a massage place. He goes, "You have an appointment?" Freaking knew that place was still there, right? I said, "No." He goes, "Oh no," he didn't want to tell me anything else. I go, "Okay," I blew that lead. So I go out in front, and people walking everywhere, and I'm just listening again. I see this lady. She's walking with her dog. I said, "That's the one. That's the one." I walked up to her. I said, pulled out a $20 bill. And I said, "Hey, can you help me with something?" She goes, "Oh yeah." And I said, and she spoke English too, which was great, which was interesting. I said, "I have an appointment." Sometimes I lie undercover, right?
Right.
So I said, "I have an appointment for a a massage place, but I can't find it. It's supposed to be here. And she looks me up and down. And my undercover outfit, I've got effers.
Gangsta.
Full gangster. I got this big old chain right here. I've got a hat that says effers upside down. Right. I have a shirt with a drawing of a doctor that looks like it says, I'm no gynecologist, but I'll take a look. It's raunchy crap, right? But that's what the traffickers were looking for, right?
Yeah.
So she looks me up and down. She goes, okay, and she makes a phone call. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, this madam comes, opens up these 2 steel doors.
Wow.
No signs or anything there, and me and my other operators, we could tell we were being watched. Takes us down these alleys, up around this corner, takes us into this place, and opens up a menu, and sure enough, that's what was being sold.
That's just
I won't go into
horrible
details
and
there.
disgusting, but yes.
So every one of our operations
Mm-hmm.
and finding these kids, it wasn't about following logic and protocol. It was about listening, tuning in to that still small voice of truth that guides every one of us every day on what we need to do to keep our kids safe, to keep ourselves safe.
Uh-huh.
And we've all had small tinges of it.
Right.
We just need to learn how to trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do, you'll start building. This is like building a muscle in a gym.
Uh-huh.
The more you use it, the more you trust it, the more clear it will be in your journey through life.
That's amazing. So let's go into how do you get there?
There's a lot of processes there. So I'll talk about my process in meditation. So I've and this is just within the last number of years where I've really started to tune in. Mm-hmm. Before that it was just listening, following when that stronger voice that's there. But how do you really start connecting to humanity? How do you connect to your higher self, your divine mission, etc.? So I like to use, and I touched on this before, I like to use the analogy of tuning in to the right frequency.
Yes.
Like those old radios, you tune it in just right, and when you're the right frequency, those radio waves are in the air all the time, but you don't hear any of them.
You just have to find them.
Yeah. So our body is a receiver, and we need to tune into the right frequency. So what's the frequency of source? What's the frequency of God?
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, the frequency of God is infinite unconditional love. I believe that frequency is the highest resonance, the highest frequency of all. It's the frequency that created life, that created the universe, is that frequency of love. And so what I do is I before I go into the meditation, I do a prayer of forgiveness and infinite love, and I start with who's super easy for me, right? My wife and my daughter, it's easy to love them unconditionally. Even my daughter is the easiest of everybody. She's just so full of light and love that I tune in to that feeling of God's love for her, that infinite love there, and then I mirror that frequency. I once I'm tuned into that frequency, I mirror it by feeling that same love for the rest of my family, right? For my wife, for my kids, my sisters, my cousins, etc. And then I tune into that same frequency for the rest of humanity, right? Even those people who are kind of effed up, right? That have made bad choices, I've got to feel that infinite love for them. Even the people who have taken advantage of me, I feel into that. And once I can feel that resonance of forgiveness, and I have to do it for myself, and sometimes yourself is the hardest of all.
Yeah, for sure.
To forgive yourself and to have that infinite love for yourself, right? So once I've tuned into that, and I'm really resonating at that feeling of love, then I also try to mirror frequencies when it comes to gratitude. I think of all the things in my life that I'm truly grateful for right now. Those are things easy, the right now stuff.
Right.
And then I tune into all the things of my life that were beautiful. And then I tune into the things that were not beautiful but got me to where I am, right? Feeling gratitude for all that is, all that was, and all that will be, right? So I'm actually feeling that gratitude for the life that I'm creating in the future, and that it's a high frequency. It's a high frequency of love and the high frequency of gratitude.
So typically when you do this to start out, how long do you say, like time-wise, does it take you to get to that spot?
It depends on how angry I am at the world.
Okay. That makes total sense.
Because if I just
If you have to work a little harder.
exactly, I can. Shortest is 5 minutes. Longest is 20 minutes.
Okay.
You know, but this next part for me doesn't work if I don't tune in.
That really resonates with me, because such a great way to tune in to, let's start with my wife, then my daughter, and then my family. That I'm gonna have to try that. Thank you, because that's just such a great way, and I feel like it would really help get you there, right?
And again, it's because that frequency that I want to be listening to, that guidance in my life, is that frequency of God. I don't want to be listening to the frequency of other intelligences that are not aligned with my higher self, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so tuning into that is the first step. Now, the second step, and everybody is different on the second step, okay? You need to figure out ways to turn off your distractions, okay?
That's a rough one for me, honestly.
Well, the spiritual realm is going to speak through your spirit, through your heart. Your heart chakra is the communicator there, right? Yeah. Together with your third eye, but that's interfered with all of your other thoughts.
The chitter chatter, the daily,
Exactly. And so finding ways to turn that off so that you can listen from a place of the heart is vital. And so I'll tell you what I do, and you can kind of find what works for you. So there's a lot of different types of breath work exercises, right? There's calming ones that we use in our ceremonies, and when we're helping people heal. There's the slow in, slow out, the box breathing. There's their Bastrita breathing. There's all kinds of different things to add energy and to calm you down. A lot of different breath work. And then there's something called holotropic breath work, and the granddaddy of that is if you can get to a DMT release holotropic breath work. Okay, your body releases a chemical called DMT when you're born and when you die. Okay, it's a calming substance that helps you through those difficult times, right? And is also a transitional substance into the spiritual realm. You can look on YouTube and find a lot of different holotropic DMT release breathwork exercises.
Okay, got it.
For me, that's what I use to turn my brain off. Okay, so what my process is this. Even before I get into this prayer of gratitude and this prayer of infinite love, I put myself in a place where I'm almost sensory deprivation type thing. I make sure I don't have a tight belt on or whatever else. I'm usually on a chair or a beanbag or even a bed. I'm not laying down. I have pillows though, so I'm not fully sitting up, but I'm just, and I'll even take off my bracelets and anything that would remind my cognitive brain that I'm still in a physical body. Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to take off all of those, and then I have some eye masks that completely block out 100% of anything in the eyes, and then I have my Bose headphones, and I go in a quiet room where make sure nobody can come in and wake me up, because I'm going to be in a deep meditation. My Bose headphones, I have a series of different things that I use. Usually they're like a 432 hertz or 512. They're different. They're either a sound bowl meditation where there's no beat, no words, right? But it's something that is going that it helps me to keep my chatter brain out of the communication. Okay. Right? So I have my headphones on, I have my playlist going, and I have my eye things on, and I get into this comfortable place where I'm just totally relaxed. Some people, nature is the one. Some people do an active meditation. For me, what works is the passive. Right? Okay. Getting into that passive place, getting into a place of complete comfort, going through that exercise of infinite love and compassion, and then I do my holotropic breath work. And it's for the one that I really like has about 30 really, really strong breaths, and then it's a full letting it out, not holding it with it in. Okay. It's a blowing it out. Now, that's part of this DMT, because your body thinks you're going to die. You're not going to die. You're going to be just fine. You might lose brain cells after 4 or 5 minutes, but nothing's going to happen in the first minute and 30 seconds, right? So there's no air there, and you're like, and you can feel your heartbeat, and you're really just tuning in to the inside. So, the one I listen to does about 3 iterations of that, and I'm really tuning into my breath. Again, the purpose is turning off my logical mind. And then the last step that I use is something called hape. Okay? So tobacco, when put into a cigarette and smoked, is, it's really
Very
damaging
bad
to
for
your
us.
lungs and
Yes.
everything, right? Tobacco is one of the most ancient healing tools and grounding tools, but not in a smoking it type of thing, right?
Not in like the cigarettes we buy
Exactly.
today.
And so instead, there are shamans that are in the middle of the Amazon jungle that use frequency and energy and prayer as they're growing the sacred tobacco plants that they use.
Wow.
And then they put it in powder form. They put some other herbs in it. You can try a lot of different types, and put it in powder form. And then in this powder form, you have this little tool, I think it's called a caripe, it's kind of like a little scooper type thing, and then you blow it, and it goes up into your nostrils, right?
So you don't like sniff it, you just blow it.
Yeah, because you don't want any in your lungs.
Okay,
And
got
nothing
it.
goes in
Okay.
your lungs. It goes right in here, and what it does is all of us have a pineal gland. It's our third eye. It's literally between here and here, and it's this little teeny crystal right inside of our minds. Again, remember we talked about crystals and tuning in, right? This is why even when I'm doing my meditation, sometimes I'll put crystals around to amplify. Your goal is to amplify the signal, right?
The
And
energy.
so for me, the hape clears out my pineal gland, okay? Allows me to finish off the clearing of any crap that's in my mind that's in the way. And that's when I drop in. Right? And they've actually put some little probe things on my head as I've gone through some of these processes, and immediately I'm able to drop into that theta state in my mind while I'm fully awake, and just really, really tune in and listen. And then for me, because a lot of the times I don't remember later everything that's there, I have a little microphone that I hook right here, and
So you
recording
record
device.
your sessions.
I record it.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And so then what I do is my next process is our words are incredibly powerful. Understanding that we live in a spiritual world, understanding also that most religions believe that 1/3 of the hosts of heaven followed the adversary, right? Whether it's 1/3, whether it's 1/2, whether it's 1/10, that doesn't matter. The truth is there are virtuous intelligences in the universe and non-virtuous ones. Okay, it's been said that even Satan himself can show up as an angel of light. So Satan is not the great fornicator. He's not the great killer. He's the great deceiver, right? Understanding that deception role is so important when you do anything to thin the veil. And we'll talk about other tools that I've used to thin the veil as well, but this is one in that meditation space. Anything you're doing to thin that veil and tune into the other side, you have to be diligent in setting sacred space, okay? Your voice is powerful. The word is powerful. And so when I'm going into that meditative space, to ensure that some being doesn't come and say, hey, I'm your guide, but they're going to guide me in the wrong direction.
Get an imposter.
Exactly. So I say the words. Today is August 12th, 2024. And then I say, I ask and intend to set sacred space, wherein only beings of truth, love, and virtue are allowed to enter. This space is protected on all sides. I invite my guides who are in line with my highest self, with my highest consciousness, and in line with God, and I visualize a bright light, a connection, direct connection between me and God. I'll say this out loud. My voice is powerful. I say, I see my higher self, my divine entity that is together at the center of the universe with Source, with God, and I see this entity coming through, this beam of light that is connecting and now into this space and is filling my head and my body with this beautiful light. And I'm saying it out loud in this visualization of this connection, this umbilical cord with God, so to speak, right? And connecting me with Earth and back and forth. And so once I'm in that space and I've verbalized that connection, I've set sacred space using my words, then at that point, I simply ask questions, right?
Okay.
I desire to know what is the best things that I can do to deepen the relationship with my children. I desire to know what's the next steps with the Child Liberation Foundation. I desire to know how I should handle this situation. So I'll send that out, and then I'll let my higher self speak through me.
So when you say your higher self is speaking through you, so when I get messages from Spirit, I see pictures or I hear them in my mind. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Is that kind of
It's
similar?
exactly what
Okay.
happens, exactly. But
Yeah.
in that meditative space, after setting that sacred space, now I see a being coming toward me. He is holding this book. He opens this book, and this is what I'm seeing. And and it's a process of being able to just be into this beautiful realm. And sometimes my guides will come and they'll say, Paul, I speak only through your heart. You need to clear your mind of the distracting thoughts. And then they won't say anything for like 15 minutes, right? I'm like, okay, really focus on my heart,
Right.
focus on my breathing, and then I can learn and listen and tune in. And all of us have the ability to do this.
Yes.
Every single person, you can learn how to expand your spiritual gifts. You can learn how to tune in to this space of love, but it is incredibly important to ensure, and this is whether you're tuning in or whether you're going to a medium or somebody, a guide that's there, make sure that they are in line, right, from a heart space, from a spiritual space, because if they're not, I've met with some, understand this is important to know, their deception is everywhere.
Yes.
And I've had some mediums that have used deception by saying, okay, when you were 5 years old, this is what happened. And when you were 10 years old, this is what happened. And this is what your grandpa's name was and whatever else. And I'm like, oh, they must be really in tune. Well, guess what? Evil entities know what I did at 5 years old and know what the name of my grandpa was, right? And so there's no proof there's proof that yes, that person is spiritually aligned with the spiritual realm, but there's no proof saying that they're aligned with virtuous entities that are in line with my highest version of me. Right?
That makes so much sense.
So it's important to ensure that the information you're getting in is protected in that space, because this is a spiritual war. Even doing child rescue missions, this is not a battle against flesh and bones. This is a battle against principalities and darkness that we need to be spiritually in a solid foundation to be able to survive the shitstorm that's here and what is coming.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's incredible. So how many times a week would you say you do your meditations?
My goal is at least 4 or 5 times a week. Unfortunately, I'm closer to 3 or 4 when I'm traveling and stuff. It's harder.
It's probably hard, yeah.
But I'm not receiving information. Okay, tell the world that this is what should happen. No, this is information for me.
Personal information, yeah.
It's tuning
guidance.
in. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful process of learning what I need to do next and what I should be aware of and the people that I need to bring into my inner circle, all of these things. And it's also important for, let's say there's guys listening who don't believe in that spiritual realm. Hopefully everybody here does. But let me just explain things, let's say just from a purely scientific doctor standpoint. Right? Let me explain it from both sides, right? Let's say that you don't believe yet. You don't believe yet in that spiritual realm. There's a book that I read years ago called The Gift of Fear.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And it was on being aware of the situations and situational awareness and things, especially when you're doing undercover work, etc., when you're in dangerous places. And that book was very non-spiritual, but it had some fascinating information. It said that every single day, our eyes and our ears pick up on billions of things that we don't remember. Like my subconscious mind right now knows crystals you have in your room right now.
Right,
It's
right.
already counted it. My subconscious mind knows everything, right?
Uh-huh.
Your subconscious mind knows how many pieces of lint are on the floor. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it picks up on everything all the time,
Uh-huh.
and it knows. It even knows. If you're talking to somebody, your subconscious mind knows if their pupil is dilating at a certain
Right.
time, or different things that could tell you that they're lying or not. All of these things your subconscious mind picks up on. But your conscious mind is too busy with all this other crap.
The chatter.
Right, exactly. And so your subconscious mind knows way more truth than you give it credit for. And so, again, being able to tune in, whether you call this tuning into your superconscious mind or whether this is tuning into your subconscious mind, you can call it whatever you want to. There's an infinite amount of knowledge that's available for all of us if we can learn how to listen.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Wow. So awesome. I'm just like in awe listening to your stories. I'm learning so much again. I love this. So moving forward, you've been involved and been on several missions. Did you say 70?
70 plus,
That's incredible. What now? I know you've started your healing. Let's talk about that a little bit with the plant
Absolutely.
medicine.
Yeah, well, we'll go into depth. I'll tell you where that came from.
Okay.
Because this is important. So, after 10 years of doing undercover work, I looked at the numbers and I realized there's more children being sold today than there was 10 years ago.
Wow.
And understand this, 10 years ago when I was on that first mission, I remember I was sitting on a chair. The traffickers had brought 54 children.
Oh, wow.
And almost everyone were under the age of 18 years old. There was some that were taken from other countries. And one of the traffickers had gone in the house, and he came back out with 4 virgins, scared to death, 3 little girls and 1
Oh
little
my
boy.
gosh.
This little boy, they had given him cocaine that morning because he was so scared. What kind of effed up monster thinks that that's attractive?
Wow. Yeah.
Every cell of my body wanted to just hug these kids and say, "You're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents again." I couldn't say that. We're
Right,
undercover.
right.
They bring this little girl out. She's the same little girl that one of the traffickers had shown me in a picture. These guys just called her Princess, right?
Uh-huh.
In the movie, we named her Rocio. That's because my wife at the time was named Rocio, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But they bring this little girl out right in front of me. I'm sitting on a chair. Standing up, she's not much taller than I was sitting down.
Oh my.
And our eyes were almost level, just like this.
Yeah.
And all I could see was fear in her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I took her little hands and I said, "Como te llamas? What's your name?" She didn't even answer. She was so scared.
Yeah.
And I said, "Está bien, it's okay." And I made a commitment at that moment to that little girl, to myself, to God, that I was going to do everything in my power to eradicate that evil from the face of the earth.
Uh-huh.
And so 10 years later, when I realized there was more children being sold than ever, after doing 70 plus missions, I said, "Paul, if your goal is to eradicate child trafficking, you're not doing a very good job, right?"
Got to go to the root of the problem.
Exactly. Because every time we were pulling children out, 20 kids out of hell, we would leave a vacuum and 20 more would be sucked back in because we weren't fixing the demand.
Right.
And I realized that we needed to elevate global consciousness. We needed to take away that demand. And what does that look like? Well, on the demand side, somebody doesn't just grow up and go start raping a 12-year-old in South
Right.
America, right? There's a lot of other problems that got there. Now, on this part, audience, don't get me wrong. I am not a sympathizer of anybody who hurts a child.
Right.
I have put my life in danger so many times to ensure that innocence is never harmed again. But what I wish more than anything is that I could have gone back 5 or 10 years before that perpetrator ever sold a child, ever hurt a child, and sat down with him and said, "What is going on in your life that makes you think that it's okay in any way
Yeah.
to go down that road?" Right? Most of them were raped themselves.
Yeah.
Most of them were. They had gone through all this trauma. And I've come to an understanding that if I'm ever judging another human being, whether it's for cutting me off on the freeway, whether it's for yelling me at the, in the grocery store line, whether it's for selling a child, if I'm ever judging another human being, there's a 100% chance that I don't have enough information to make that judgment. I don't know. I don't know if that mother that was selling her child, if she was raped as a child, if somebody's going to kill her other. I don't know. There's so many things. I don't know if that guy cutting me off on the freeway, if his daughter's in the hospital. He might just be an asshole. I don't know.
Right.
But I can't judge. I don't have all that information.
Yeah.
And so what I can do is ensure that guy never sells another child again. But if we're really going to fix this problem, humanity has to heal. How does humanity heal? Well, number one is what we just talked about. They need to learn how to tune in. They need to learn how to listen.
Yes.
The only way that we heal that kind of trauma from our childhood is with a connection to the spiritual realm. We just can't do it on our own. It's super, super difficult.
I agree.
And so about 8 years ago, I had been doing undercover work, and I was doing undercover as what they call Paul Stone. Okay, big, like on that first mission, I was the guy with the money, with the Ferraris, with the Lambo, with the, all this. I had these pictures of me with all of this stuff, right? And the operators would go undercover and they would find the traffickers and say, hey, this is the guy that's funding this. And I had that profile of the rich playboy. I was the Jeffrey Epstein type of the world, right?
Yes.
That's why. So it worked really well because that's the energy that I had. But unfortunately, I had self-imposed trauma. I wasn't raped as a child, but because I was so incredibly successful in my business career, my relationships were crap, right? They were super toxic. I was having massive parties at my house. I had, 200 plus beautiful women, and all the NFL players were there, all this crap, right? And I had a basketball court in my basement, all kinds of this energy. And I had a couple of my undercover operators called me up, and one of them said, Paul, do you trust us? I said, I trust you with my life, undercover for sure. He said, we've started working with a doctor who specializes in helping people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, and other toxic things in their life. And I said, well, I know a lot about overcoming anxiety and depression. That's what my company did for a long time.
Yeah.
They said, is this kind of a healing type thing? I said, I don't need to heal. I'm Paul effing Hutchinson. That was my energy.
Right.
And they said, no, you need to heal.
You had the ego.
I did. It was unconquerable ego. I would go into a therapy office and try to hit on the therapist, right? That's how I was, right? And so they brought me, they said this doctor has studied all around the world in different tools. And one of which that she was using was something that was put under the bus in the late 60s. Okay, so sit down, guys, on this part, because we've been trained our whole life a lie, and I'm going to tell you the difference. So in the late 60s, President Nixon decided to throw a whole bunch of things under the bus and classify them as Schedule 1 drugs. Okay, we're talking about things like sassafras and white lily and mistletoe and psilocybin, different types of psychedelics. And we've been told our whole life that these are as dangerous
They're
as
bad.
like they're dangerous as cocaine because they're classified as a Schedule 1 drug. The truth is, things like psilocybin is safer than table sugar.
Wow.
Right? There's never been a case of addiction. There's never been a case of overdose. Right? Johns Hopkins University did a study and found that 76% of the people who go through just one session of a guided meditation, plant medicine experience using psychedelics, things like mushrooms, after one session, 76% of the people said it was the most transformational 24 hours of their life.
That's incredible.
Which is powerful. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, they did another study of over 800 participants that were all self-proclaimed atheists. Okay, when you get to the point where you don't
believe in nothing.
it's not just I'm an agnostic, I don't know, but a flat-out atheist, God doesn't exist, right?
Right.
800 plus atheists. They found that 2/3 of them, after only one experience with psilocybin, 2/3 of them changed from being an atheist to believing in God.
Wow.
Which is just a phenomenal thing. And so when I was brought into this experience was the most horrible, beautiful experience in my life. The medicine taught me empathy like I've never felt. Now, I had empathy for the kids we were rescuing and stuff, but
Right.
you know, my interpersonal relationships and treating people in ways that I shouldn't, I felt in every cell of my body, I could feel the pain of anybody that I had wronged.
Yeah.
And it put me into a beautiful state of empathy, of really understanding how my actions were affecting other people, and it transformed everything in my world. And then we started bringing on people who had dealt with serious childhood trauma. Because as I was starting to speak about our child rescue missions, there were adults who would come and say, hey, you know what, I was raped as a child. You know, my father abused me physically or verbally or whatever else, and I'm carrying this stuff, and I'm still going to therapy, and nothing's working.
Yep.
So we brought a few of those. We brought 5 women, was our first one, who all 5 of them had been sold by their mothers or raped by their grandpas and all this horrible stuff as a child, really heavy stuff.
Wow.
And all 5 of them were able to experience more transformation and growth in 24 hours than they'd experienced in 10 and 20 years worth of therapy.
That's crazy.
It was phenomenal. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of somebody going to a rave party, getting some mushrooms, and going for a trip. That is
Right.
not. In fact, it is not healthy at all. And here's why. Again, when we were talking about the meditation,
Yep.
when you need to set sacred space, right? When you're using things like psilocybin, you have to have a facilitator who understands how to set that sacred space, how to set the environment and the container in a way that is healthy spiritually.
Right.
Why? Because it's going to thin the veil. This is why 2/3 of atheists become believers in God, right? It thins that veil and puts you in a spiritual connection with your higher self, with God, with each other,
Yeah.
in a really beautiful way. Well, if you're thinning that veil at a rave party and there's an orgy going on over there and rap music over here and all this negative energy, of course you're going to have a bad trip, right? You're going to go in this
Because you're absorbing everything.
negative energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been doing, we there's laws that have changed in different states, which is beautiful. It decriminalized it. We were this close in Utah. We were extremely close to having Utah not only be the first, not only decriminalize the use of some of these tools, but fully legalize the use of things like psilocybin and others in trauma therapy. And because of the fact that I had a decade of experience in helping people overcome anxiety and depression, PTSD, and in some of our other tools, now being able to do that same experience in 3 to 4 days was super powerful. And so we were very close in changing the laws here. Our governor decided he was going to veto our bill until further notice, until the FDA approved some things. But I think within the next year,
That would be so
it'd be
amazing.
great. But again, you need a facilitator who understands. You can go to liberatinghumanity.com, liberatinghumanity.com, and get information on our retreats, things that we're doing in Latin America,
Yes.
etc. And we host those every couple months or so. And
That's amazing.
That's
Do you?
beautiful.
So is Utah still in the forefront? Like, are we are other states starting to look into it now?
yeah,
or-
Utah's a hard one because
Yes,
you know,
very hard.
you know, that's
We have a different culture
we
here.
do. You know, there's Colorado has already decriminalized it, and Oregon,
Okay,
and
yeah.
Nevada's looking at it, and parts of California, and so there's a lot of states that are decriminalizing it. But Utah was going to fully legalize the use in trauma therapy, but we have to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
But soon we will.
Hopefully that works out soon, because that would be amazing.
It's powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And if you want some more information, go read a book called Immortality Key. The
Okay.
Immortality Key talks about the history, even in religious settings throughout the last few thousand years of it opening up that thinning that veil and opening up the connection to the other side, etc. And there's another one called Change Your Mind, and then I have a book coming out called Sound of Freedom.
Yes.
The Sound of Freedom book is, you can go to soundoffreedombook.com,
Yeah.
pre-order it, and I have a whole section at the end all on healing trauma and the different breath work and the different meditation tools, and I talk in detail about the use of some of these plant medicine tools and helping people heal as well.
That's awesome. Plus, you mentioned to me you have a second book you're working on.
I do.
Yes.
I do, yeah.
Super excited for that one.
That one's going to be, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here is in that one. have a book called Are You Listening?
Yeah.
Not Are You Listening with my hand on my
Right.
ear, but Are You Listening with my hand on my heart? And I
Yeah.
talk about that experience with Jerry early on, and a lot of the things that we can do to start tuning in
Uh-huh.
and listen to that voice of truth that's inside of all of us.
And when do we expect that one coming?
It's probably going to take me another 6 months to get that one out.
Yeah.
My publishers are telling me they want me to put a couple business books out first.
Okay.
I've been super successful in business, and they want to put me on a lot of stages in front of business people and they want me to talk about the spiritual side, and they want me to
awesome.
talk
I love
about the charity stuff. But in
Uh-huh.
order to get me on these big stages, they need me to put out some of my business books. So I'm going to put out a couple of those real
Uh-huh.
quick, and then Are You Listening is coming out
next.
after that.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait for that. It's about time to wrap things up here. Did we have any questions come through? Or
Mostly just comments.
okay.
Excited to be here. Way interesting. Great process to tuning in. I'm going to try it.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
And Taco commented a lot.
We'll be talking to her in just a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, great. I'm just sitting here in awe and listening to your stories and
sweetheart.
stuff, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
what do I say to all this? Anyway.
Well, I think it's important for all of us to realize that there's no one of us that's any more spiritually, able to connect
Yeah.
on a higher level. Every single person has spiritual gifts,
Yep.
and every one of us can learn to tune into them. And anything of the past, whether it's something that happened to you or even something that you did in the past, does not have to define you today and doesn't have to define your future. All of those things can heal. All of those things are something that we can move past
Yes.
and not have it affect us currently or in the future, and how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. And if we can do that, if we can help humanity heal from their own childhood traumas, we will save millions of children from ever having that trauma transfer happen in their
That-
lives.
Sounds like a plan to me. I love it. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you again, Paul. I'm so grateful for the opportunity and for you taking your precious time to come here and hang out with us. So anyway, thank you so much. And we